The people doing this show, they live here.
There's Mr. Sunshine. And then there's Mr. Do we go and knock on his door right now? Or is he... When Vlad does that, do you think he wants us to try and get the boat to turn around?
I think he wants the boat
to wrap it up?
I think he wants the boat to turn around and...
The most influential episodes on me have been...
When did you feel like you knew what the show was, though?
About 5 p.m. last Tuesday. When I finally watched back all the episodes.
How'd you feel about it?
Loved them, they're great.
Good, yeah.
Good work.
Well done, Tom.
We had such a strong idea of what we wanted to try and achieve.
Yeah.
And then the bit that was a bit cloudy for me was what these subjects were. You know, we had all these names up on the board and trying to work out if there's a story there, and then realizing how to approach all of these subjects in a way where the story, we were allowing the stories to present themselves to us.
Yeah.
I think it was probably as we were starting to film Rum Runners, as we were starting to see the generosity of people in the wider community offering up this information to us, that's what I think I had a sort of epiphany moment of like, I'm starting to see how we can make this show now.
The people doing this show, they live here. You know, live in different counties. You know the coffee shops, know the breweries.
There is a sense of ownership.
Yeah.
They're not just working on a project. It's their stories.
Yeah. 'Cause I don't think I'll ever work on another project that gets to be quite this personal.
Right.
And so maybe I don't, not emotionally personal in some way, but it's just like living here, being from here, caring about the city and caring about the team and caring about the people and the stories that we tell. I don't know if I'll ever get another chance in my career and in my life to be able to really throw myself into it.
How does Chronicles compare to past projects? Where does it rank in terms of content you've made that you feel proud of?
I'm the most proud of Chronicles because of what we've built.
Yeah.
It's just like I know this show, I'm gonna have people who I'll want to work with for like the rest of my life. And Erie's never really had anything like this. And I know that sounds hyperbolic and people say those things all the time, but it's like nobody's ever tried to do a show quite like this. And trying to take this open door, transparent, because that's something else. Television shows tend to be very much, we build up a border, we don't let the outside in. And I'm glad that we sort of came to the opposite way, where it's just like, and it could lead to long conversations, but we sort of opened up the gates and it's like, it's not our show, it's not my show, it's not your show, it's our show.
Yeah.
And when we say that, it's, that's anybody coming in from the community and stuff like that. And so, and by doing it and by treating it that way, I think that's why it has found some of the audience that it's found.
The most influential episodes on me have been Houses of Faith.
Yeah, sure.
That completely changed my outlook and opinion on a number of different things. Which of the episodes have you found have had the most influence on your outlook?
Interesting. Houses of Faith. I think it's a fair one. Due to my upbringing. Yeah.
That wake's gonna be fun.
Yeah. Waiting for Q. Houses of Faith. Personally, Houses of Faith.
Right.
I think I had always had this 21st century cynicism of these institutions, and to sort of come back around and now have so much more empathy and appreciation for what the churches actually, and not just the churches, but like all those, like to what they bring to the community and why it's actually important, and the peril of what it is to be losing some of these. It's just like, I've done a 180 and I do not think that is good for the city. We've got to figure something out, but it's just like, if you people don't start to, I hope that people don't find or lose their faith, and that the churches can find their, some of their congregations again. That is something starting in 2022 you would have never heard me say. And
Right.
Houses of Faith made me feel that way. It made me feel different. Personally, on some level, then, one of the episodes, Savacchio, again. Savacchio is another one, because Savacchio is so much not about necessarily just her. It is a study in local politics at
Right.
an interesting time. And I think personally that's my favorite interview that I've been involved with. But I mean, you've had some fun ones though. The Hagen interview is a great interview.
Yes.
It's a great interview. I mean, that was I was smiling ear to ear. I was just like, it's been fun getting to watch you work, because you're so much better at that craft than I am. It's just like, there's no even question to me. It's just like, when I watch you do an interview, it's like watching a sporting event to me. Like, and it's like, oh, where's he going to go with this? And sometimes I can't always telegraph your moves, which is sort of fun. It's just like, yeah.
I think the only point in an interview where I've thought, okay, I know I have to build up to this, but I'm nervous, was in Houses of Faith and having to.
Keegler?
Well, both you and Bishop Erskine, just having to rip the Band-Aid off and go, right, let's talk about something really difficult here.
Yeah. But they were both there for it.
They were so amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. What for you is the most challenging part of the show?
The research.
Right.
The research. I remember when I first would talk to people about what the show was and everything like that, it sounded so generic. And then at one point, and I think it was talking to Kenna, and Kenna kind of helped me figure this out a little bit, just by a conversation we were having over lunch one day. And then it was the combination of words where it's like, we're putting the history into context. And that was the moment that took me like good, almost like 16, 17 months before like I said it like that, and it really clicked what that meant. Because I think I'd probably said it before, but after doing a couple of episodes, and all of a sudden it's like, that's what it is. So it's the research and trying to find, we know this story or that story, but like, why is something like Millionaire's Row, why is that important? It's the idea. It's the theme of preservation. Why is something like the Erie Blades? How does that actually map into things? And it's like, I knew about the Erie Blades my entire life. What I didn't know is that hockey was centered around the Erie Zoo, and that is very much a part of that.
Is there anything you would do differently? Is there a question you didn't ask that you're now kicking yourself over?
Oh, that's a good one. The Savacchio episode. Joyce told me what she wouldn't talk about, and so I respected her wishes. But there were things that I wanted to get into, and then I didn't understand the landscape because I started doing my research for Canavino Tullio after Savacchio, and that actually leads into the importance of her administration. So the interesting thing about those two episodes, or the themes of those two episodes, is now I look back at it, and Bellwether, I very much, and I think I talked to you about this, is the idea of like, these are these political fulcrums in the city's history. And from Savacchio, it's when the city's probably, from a morale standpoint, at its lowest, and from Canavino, it's when the city feels at its highest. And so with Bellwether, it was an interesting thing because it's like, sort of like, it's a time capsule. And it's going to be so interesting to look back at Bellwether 5-10 years from now and see how that goes. How about you?
It's getting a bit choppy. I think I would go all the way back to the very, very beginning and make us start hiring people right out the gate. So that we could have got got a jump on those first episodes. We wouldn't have been in that domino effect of one into the other with the episodes.
Yes, and in to not, you're right, and that would have been ideal, but let's be real. There was a lot of teaching that we've had to do during season 1.
Yes.
You know, and it's just like, that's going to be, I think, one of those things that it's just like, I on some level, I think that's one of the things I'm personally most proud and gratified by, but it's just like, but that, yeah, teaching while trying to learn and also do these very complex themed episodes, it's not juggling bowling pins, it's been juggling chainsaws.
Yeah.
But you're right. That would have been ideal.
It would have given us more time, or not more time, would have given us, we would have covered more ground. I mean, the fact that we got so lucky in Rum Runners, you know, finding people on the dock in Port Dover who could then say, oh, go and talk to this person.
Yeah.
You'll find him down in his little shack down by the water.
Yeah. Well, that's the other thing. You mentioned what I wish I had asked. Gamble, now doing the nautical stuff and my nautical research, my maritime research, David undersells the importance of the Gamble boatyard. And it's like it is so much more to it than that.
Right.
That family was involved in the fish wars leading up to it. And they had a very, obviously he does mention some of this, but they did have a close relationship to the Colbys, and that family in Port Dover really pushes innovation and engineering on the lake forward in a lot of ways.
Out of curiosity, because I think one of your great strengths is maintaining this sense of positivity and energy.
Yeah.
Because that energizes the team at large, and that's an area that I fall down. I think between the two of us, there is this sort of sunshine. There's Mr. Sunshine, and then there's Mr. Do we go and knock on his door right now, or is he?
Yeah.
How do you maintain that sunny disposition?
Because I'm truly inspired by what we're doing. I think on some level, it's just like I'm enjoying the challenge.
Right.
And I'm enjoying the challenge because I don't think we always get it right.
But in light of how many hours we have to put in and the lack of sleep we get,
yeah,
you always seem to come at things with, is it the show that's energizing you, or are you just that caffeinated?
Both? Can two things be true at the same time? By the way, we really should, they should try to get sponsorships from Ember and Forge and Tipsy Bean and Brew Ha Ha. And I'm always meeting people at the coffee shops, if you notice.
Right.
It's
yeah.
Oh
we should do an IQ coffee tasting session.
Oh, I would love to. You could blindfold me, and I could probably tell you where the coffee comes from. I'm not kidding.
I don't doubt it.
I have hit all the coffee shops. There's one I just hit up in Northeast when we were filming the Nutcracker bit, and they have some excellent coffee up there too. So that's another fun thing about the show, to go out to the counties and sort of see the foods and everything like that that's going out there. I've definitely discovered a lot more culinary delights while doing this. And so, yeah, it's just, I'm inspired by the challenge of it. And just like anything, I think I'm also, I played soccer for a long, long time, football, as you might know it.
Yeah, yeah.
Go Gunners. And because I don't always think we win every day. And it's just like, I am competitive in that way to sort of, for every episode to sort of like, it's like, I want us to feel like, I know I don't let perfection get in the way of things. I really don't, despite what people might think. But it's just like, I want us to walk away and it's like, what did we learn? How did we win this one? I love the story about, so your mother goes shopping, she's visiting.
She's in the Mill Creek Mall, I think. And she's talking, and some passerby just interrupts her. Sorry to interrupt, but your voice, the way you talk, it's really reminding me of someone. And then his wife turns around and says, well, it sounds very much like that chap off the TV, that show we've been watching. What was it, Chronicles? Yeah, on WQLN, that PBS show. You don't know him, do you? That's my mother going, he's my son. I don't know. But just the fact that they have the audience is having such a connection with the shows that even something as little as someone speaking with a similar voice pattern is enough to sort of cause a moment from an episode to lodge in their minds and come back to them. It's really rewarding making a show that is resonating with people.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I had a funny one, and I forget sometimes that we've done the WQLN interstitials, and it's like, hey, this is WQLN, and so that our face is on there.
Yeah.
And I was in Wegmans one time, and I was in a rush too. I was trying to get to like a family event, and just these two very sweet women. I think I was grabbing cat food at the time because I love my cats. I'm grabbing cat food at the time, and they stopped me, and they knew exactly who I was. I'm very popular with the 65 and above, and I'm here for it.
When Vlad does that, do you think he wants us to try and get the boat to turn around?
I think he wants the boat
to wrap it up.
I think he wants the boat to turn around, and so yeah, I think he wants this picturesque landscape behind him, and so because the exposure, it's golden out right now, and so
it is golden now.
And so
Kissing the side of our bed.
Yeah, it's just like it really. I mean, it's quite something to be this close to it.
Are you?
How do you stand your reflection? Like to just be that handsome?
I thought you were cracking a joke about the sun just bouncing off of my face.
Oh no! I mean, do you just look at your reflection sometimes and you're like, oh?
My reflection right now is giving you a wonderful fill on this side of your face. Is it fair to say that this show is helping you love Erie more than you already did?
Yes and no. Yes, I know you want the happy end. Yes.
Well, we are. I know where you're going because we are seeing the uglier parts as well. We are uncovering and discussing parts of Erie that aren't nice.
Yeah.
And we are holding a torch up to that, and we are saying, look, this is where we've failed as a community, and where our leaders have failed, and we need to correct course, and not nearly enough is being done about this.
Yeah.
And there are things about this city that are incredibly ugly, both in its management and in its physical state.
Yeah.
But I find that in the course of making this show, my optimism for what is on the horizon for Erie is just growing with every episode that we make.
I do think, and that's the thing, to make Vlad happy.
Yeah.
As we're doing the show and seeing the evolution and starting to be able to lay the breadcrumbs, and if we're futurists and we are sort of prognosticating what's in the future. I mean, I hate saying the best days are ahead and stuff like that, but like I see the growth of the city, and I see it I actually see where it's trending because, and I hear people being critical all the time, whether it's at the Calamari's or at the Plymouth and stuff like that. And what dawns on me is it's like you don't know, like you don't see some of the things that we're seeing because we are researching it. And we are having the interviews with the people who are actively trying to make those difference. And I think the biggest thing one of the biggest takeaways that it's just like, I think people, even if they don't think that they're in a position of, influence, I think people shouldn't underestimate what they can do to incite that change for the better.
Well, I think this was, this is not, whether the audience like it or not, I've enjoyed this little catch up of season 1.
I've loved this. This is good. We've got 2 more seasons of this.
Same time next year?
Same time next year.
Cool.
Let's do it.